There's something strangely comforting about looking back at everyday life in Britain during the 1960s. A time when things were simpler, or at least they seemed that way, when communities felt closer, children played outside until dark, and neighbors borrowed sugar without texting first. But when you strip away the nostalgia and really look at how we lived, it becomes startlingly clear that much of what was normal back then would be completely illegal today. The rules were different, the expectations were different, and the things we all accepted, without blinking, would now raise eyebrows, headlines, or even criminal charges. So let's take a calm stroll through the world we once thought was harmless and ask ourselves, how on earth was this ever allowed? Number 1. Smoking in hospitals and on planes. Believe it or not, there was a time when lighting up a cigarette inside a hospital ward or mid-air during a flight wasn't just allowed, it was completely normal. In Britain during the 1960s, you could be lying in a hospital bed hooked up to a drip, and the person in the next bed might spark up a cigarette right there next to you. Nurses smoked in break rooms, doctors puffed away while filling out charts, and if you boarded a plane, you'd likely be greeted by the sweet smell of kerosene mixed with tobacco smoke. Ashtrays were built into the armrests, and no one batted an eye. Today, this would be unthinkable. With what we now know about passive smoking, fire safety, and public health, the idea of someone lighting a cigarette on a plane or in a hospital is enough to make most of us feel physically ill. But back then, it was just part of life. Number 2. Children riding in cars without seatbelts. In the 60s, cars were built like tanks, but often equipped with little to no regard for safety. Most vehicles didn't even come with seatbelts in the back seats, and if they did, they were rarely used. Children would climb into the car, jump into the back seat, or even the boot, and off you'd go, windows down, kids sliding around as the car turned corners. Car seats for babies were virtually non-existent, and it wasn't uncommon to see a toddler perched on the passenger's lap, completely unrestrained. If you were going on a longer trip, parents might throw a mattress into the back of the estate car so kids could nap during the journey. It all sounds like a recipe for disaster today, and frankly, it was. But it was the norm, and few gave it a second thought. Number 3. Corporal punishment in schools. Across Britain in the 1960s, the sound of a wooden ruler smacking against a child's palm was as familiar as the school bell. Teachers were legally allowed, and often encouraged, to physically punish students for misbehavior, lateness, cheekiness, or even poor handwriting. The slipper, the cane, the ruler, each had its place in the classroom discipline toolkit. What's truly shocking now is how routine it was. Parents accepted it, headmasters justified it, and children endured it. In some schools, there were even punishment logs where staff would record how many strikes each child received. Today, any form of physical punishment in schools is completely banned and would lead to criminal charges. But back then, it was just character building. Number 4. Kids buying cigarettes for their parents. Here's a scene you'd never see today. A 7-year-old walking to the corner shop with a note and a few coins, asking the shopkeeper for 10 Benson & Hedges for me mum. And the shopkeeper? They'd hand it over without hesitation. Children were regularly sent on errands to buy cigarettes, matches, even bottles of sherry. No proof of age, no raised eyebrows, just a knowing nod and a reminder to bring back the change. It was so normalized that many shops even kept a little notepad to track which family owed what for their weekly smokes. This practice is now not only banned, it's unimaginable. We don't let children near alcohol or cigarettes today, let alone buy them. But in the 60s, it was simply part of growing up. Number 5. Dangerous toys sold without warning labels. If you were a child in the 60s, you probably played with toys that would make today's health and safety officers break into a cold sweat. Tiny plastic soldiers that posed a choking hazard, chemistry sets with real acids and open flames, cap guns that fired loud explosive blanks, and lawn darts. Yes, sharp metal-tipped missiles sold as garden toys. There were no safety warnings, no age recommendations, and no child-proof packaging. Toy safety regulations were almost non-existent, and injuries were just considered part of the learning curve. Today, every toy comes with pages of legal disclaimers. Back then, the only real warning was your mum shouting, "Don't poke your eye out with that." Number 6. Parents physically disciplining their children in public. In the 1960s, a parent smacking their child in the middle of a supermarket wasn't unusual. It was expected. A swift slap to the legs, a tap on the back of the head, or a stern grip of the arm followed by a whispered threat was all part of daily life. No one intervened. No one called social services. In fact, strangers might even nod approvingly. What's changed isn't just the law, it's the cultural attitude. Today, public physical discipline would raise eyebrows, draw smartphones, and likely result in a visit from Child Protection Services. But in the 1960s, Britain, it was considered good parenting. Number 7. Dogs roaming the streets. If you lived in a typical British town or village in the 60s, you'll remember that dogs roamed freely. They'd wander the streets, sniffing bins, chasing cars, and occasionally following groups of children on their adventures. Some were strays, but many had homes. They were just let out to go for a walk on their own. There were no leads, no poop bags, no microchips. Dogs came and went as they pleased. Occasionally, they'd get into scraps or follow the postman too closely, but no one seemed overly concerned. Today, a loose dog is considered a danger to traffic, to children, to itself. But back then, it was just part of the landscape. Number 8. Smoking around children. In the 60s, if you were a child, you probably inhaled more secondhand smoke than oxygen. Adults smoked in the house, in the car, in restaurants, in cinemas, even in doctors' waiting rooms. And nobody thought twice about the effect it might have on the kids. Birthday parties had ashtrays on the table. Christmas dinners were enjoyed through a fog of smoke. Parents lit up on the school run. It was everywhere. Today, smoking near children is frowned upon, and laws actively prevent it in enclosed spaces. But in the 60s, a child coughing in a smoky room would be told, "You'll get used to it." Number 9. Burning rubbish in the garden. Before recycling bins and weekly refuse collections, many families in the 60s had one very effective method of dealing with household waste: the garden bonfire. Old food wrappers, broken furniture, cardboard boxes, all of it went into a pile and was set alight. The smell of smoke in the evening wasn't unusual. It meant someone was clearing out the shed. Today, burning rubbish is strictly regulated and open fires are discouraged in built-up areas. But back then, your dad setting fire to half the contents of the garage on a Sunday afternoon was just part of suburban life. Number 10. Hitchhiking, even for teenagers. Hitchhiking was not just common in the 60s, it was practically a rite of passage. Teenagers would stand by the side of the road with a thumb out, hoping to catch a lift to the next town, a seaside holiday spot, or even across the country. Parents weren't thrilled, but most didn't stop them. It was cheap, it was easy, and it was normal. Drivers picked up strangers without worry, and passengers jumped into cars without fear. Today, the idea of your teenage child hitchhiking would be enough to give any parent heart palpitations. But back then, it was seen as adventurous. not dangerous. Number 11. No helmets for cyclists, even children. In the 1960s, a bicycle helmet was virtually unheard of. Children cycled to school, to the shops, to the park, often without even checking their brakes, and certainly without any head protection. The most safety-conscious families might insist on a high-vis sash or a bell, but that was the extent of it. Skinned knees, gravel burns, and the occasional crash were considered part of growing up. If you turned up wearing a helmet, you'd be mocked for being soft. Today, bike helmets are standard and often required by law. But back then, falling off your bike was just how you learned to ride better. Number 12. Children working after school. In the 60s, once school finished, many children didn't head straight home for homework or screen time. They went to work, paper rounds, milk deliveries, helping out in shops, or even working in fields during harvest. It was all part of growing up. And no one questioned whether a 12-year-old should be waking up at 5 a.m. to deliver newspapers in the dark. These jobs were seen as character building and a way to earn a bit of pocket money. Today, child labor laws are far stricter, and many of these roles are now done by adults or simply don't exist. But in 1960s Britain, if you weren't working by 13, you were considered lazy. Number 13. Home remedies that would now be banned. Cough! Out came the homemade rubs. A cut, a splash of iodine, toothache, clove oil, and a shot of whiskey. British homes in the 60s were filled with do-it-yourself cures that would send today's pharmacists into a fit of panic. Mothers swore by castor oil, mustard plasters, and hot water bottles applied in all sorts of questionable ways. There were no child-proof lids, no dosing instructions, and definitely no safety seals. Many of these concoctions are now considered harmful or ineffective. But back then, if it worked for your gran, it worked for you. Number 14. Leaving children outside the shop or in the pram. Perhaps one of the most startling differences is how casually parents would leave their children unattended. If a mother needed to pop into the shop, she'd leave the pram, baby and all, parked outside on the pavement. Toddlers were told to wait here while their parent went into the bank or the butcher's. And they did, often for 10 or 15 minutes. There was a level of societal trust that is almost unimaginable today. And while it wasn't completely without risk even then, it was accepted. Today, it would spark police involvement and news headlines. But in the 60s, it was simply how things were done. Number 15. Asbestos everywhere, and no one cared. And finally, perhaps the most dangerous of all, asbestos. Found in school ceilings, floor tiles, loft insulation, garage roofs, and even some household appliances. In the 60s, asbestos was hailed as a miracle material. Fireproof, insulating, cheap. What's not to love? It was only later that the devastating health consequences emerged. Lung disease, cancer, asbestosis. But during the 60s, no one knew, or no one told. Children played in buildings filled with asbestos dust. Builders handled it without protection. And by the time it was banned, the damage had already been done. It remains one of Britain's most deadly everyday materials, and a chilling reminder of just how blind we once were to danger. It's easy to romanticize the past, the slower pace, the simpler times, the freedom. But when we look closely at the everyday habits of 1960s Britain, we're reminded that many of those simpler times came with risks that would be completely unacceptable today. Perhaps that's what makes nostalgia so powerful. Not because we want to go back, but because we survived it. And in doing so, we carry the stories, the lessons, and the quiet disbelief that these things were ever allowed in the first place.